Okay, so what are we going to do in this class? So some of this class overlaps with some other classes such as technical drafting and engineering graphics. We're going to talk about orthographic projections and section views and proper dimensioning, something that we hit on a little bit in engineering graphics, and we'll do more in here. And some of you haven't had engineering graphics, and that's great. You'll have it later, and it'll be a review in there. We'll be doing geometric dimensioning and tolerancing. So that is, how many of you know what GD&T is? Any of you seen it before? Okay, good. So it's another way of dimensioning to be even more precise, and we'll spend a few weeks on that. We used to have a separate GD&T class, but in manufacturing, it's something that's used. For example, it could be things like concentricity, making sure two things are really concentric to each other. It could be flatness of a surface, straightness of an edge. So it goes more than just regular dimensioning. So that'll make more sense when we get there. We'll take a look at fasteners, how to detail threads, what do the thread callouts mean, what's an ANSI thread, what's an ACME thread, etc. So we'll go through all that. We'll do some welding symbols. We'll actually, at some point, take a little trip over to the welding lab, and the instructor will go over some welding symbols with you guys and talk about some of the different welds. It's great to hear from the actual welding instructor. Any of you have any welding experience? No? Good. I have zero. So
I'm going to.
Are you? Are you taking what? Awesome. Good. And then usually towards the end we do some power transmission stuff, which is just basically gears. So we'll learn how to calculate gears and be able to draw those up. Time permitting. Sometimes we run out of time by the time we get there. We spend a ton of time on the GD&T and the fasteners. There'll be some math in this class. We do some. One thing that I guess I don't explicitly have laid out, but it's part of the fasteners, is figuring out clearances and tolerances. So different types of fits. Do I want it to be a press fit, a loose fit? What are the tolerance values going to be? I guess you could say that's part of dimensioning. So that's another thing that we'll spend a lot of time on in this class. A lot of drawing and a fair amount of lecture and demo as well, but really a lot of drawing and applying the stuff, just like most of my classes. If you have any questions, feel free to holler. Basic syllabus, instructor sheet stuff. Typically use the your Dragon Zone email if I need anything. So please check that often or have it forwarded to your regular mail or your phone, whatever it might be. Grading policy, again, most of you have had me before, but 90, 80, 70, 60, just like normal. And then you have to turn things in on time for them to be full credit. Otherwise, you lose 30%. Typically what I'll do is, like the stuff I'm going to give you today, you should have plenty of time to finish it in class today. So I'll typically set the due date as the beginning of next class period. So if you don't have it in by the beginning of next class period, then you'll lose 30%. And it's coming up on another slide, but I'll take it for up to a week late, and then I won't take it anymore. Speaking of things being due at the beginning of class, there's nothing in front of this class in here. So if you need a little extra time to work on something, that's one possible time. If you don't have an 8 o'clock class, you can come in a little early. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, this lab's pretty much booked until 3 o'clock. So after 3, it's open. And then also Tuesday, Thursday, it's booked pretty much 9:40 to 1. So before and after, or some other times that you can come in and work. All right. Please let me know ahead of time if you're going to miss for any reason. And again, maybe we can get you working on the assignments ahead of time so that you can turn it in and it not be late. Try not to be tardy. Caitlin, excuse me. I'm just kidding. For those of you that don't know, I was late last semester and Caitlin gave me a really hard time, so I'm trying to give it back to her. So, but I typically count 2 tardies as an absence, and then as far as the attendance policy, if you miss 3 times or 6 tardies, then I'll send in a regular attendance form. If you miss 5, then I'll drop you from the class, maybe, unless there's some extenuating circumstances. So I usually try to work with you guys. Mentioned all the late work stuff. If class is canceled for any reason, then whatever we're going to do moves on to the next one. If we do any quizzes or exams, you have to do it during that class. So that's not covered by my late work policy. You just miss out if you're not here for those. We'll do a few quizzes, especially when we get into the clearances and tolerances. That takes a lot of work, so in addition to any tests, we'll do a few little quizzes as well. Please stay off the phones during class. If you're drawing and you want to, pull up some music or whatever on it, that's fine. But please no texting or any of that stuff while I'm lecturing/demoing. Please at all, but especially while I'm lecturing and demoing. I know it's an early class. Please don't bring any food in. Feel free to bring some drinks in though, as needed. You guys probably all know this, but you got free software available at students.autodesk.com. We're, of course, using AutoCAD in here for most of the semester, probably all the semester. So you can always put that on your computers. The Rimmer Learning Resource Center also has a couple of machines with CAD on it as well. So that's another opportunity for catching up on some work. And then, of course, my Facebook page. If you haven't liked that, please do so. I post up various things. The last thing I posted was I got a couple of companies that are wanting to hire some students. So it's easy to tell you guys that are here in person, but then any former students that maybe are underemployed or don't like their jobs, I try to keep in contact with as well. So please like that. It gives me a way to stalk you after you leave here. Books. Everybody have their book? Who doesn't have their book? Okay. Most of the class. So Caitlin was late, but she got her book. Good job, Caitlin. I canceled that tardy. I'll run some copies of what we're going to do today, but we do pretty much use it daily, so please get it and bring it to class. USB drives. Most of the stuff that we do here at the beginning is pretty self-contained. You'll be done that day usually. We'll get into some bigger projects that will be multiple days, so then it's even more important to use your USB drive. If you don't have a USB drive, many of you probably know this already, but I'll show you Google Drive here. So if you go to Dragon Zone, I think a USB drive is a little easier to work with, but if you don't have that available, or maybe you forgot it, like me, I'm terrible at remembering those. When you come into your Dragon Zone and you go to your email, your Gmail, if you will. Then, if you click these little 9 squares here, you can choose Google Drive. And then you can upload any files. So you can just hit New, Folder, or File Upload, and then go ahead and upload your files up here. So strongly encourage you to do that for a couple of different reasons. I know nobody's going to cheat in here, but I have the right to ask you for your drawing files at any point in time if things are looking very similar and I want to actually see your electronic files. I might ask for them, so you do need to keep your electronic files. The other reason is we keep computers for four years. This is the last semester of these computers, so who knows what could happen. So we could get a crash at any point in time and lose data. So please back up. And I also strongly encourage you, if you use a USB drive, don't just use a USB drive, because then if you lose that, obviously you're out of luck. So I encourage you to, I've got a folder on the C drive, save there, and then back up either to drive or to a USB drive. So you got it in 2 different places, and then that way you won't have any problems. Not having your USB drive or the computer crashed, etc., is not a valid excuse for not having assignments. You guys need to back up just like we would in the real world. Okay? So for the rest of the time today, well, first of all, any questions? Good. Before I get into what we're going to do today, I do want to point out that in Learning Zone, if you click on my instructor sheet over on the left side, there is a tentative calendar, so you can kind of see the time that we're going to spend on each of the things that we talked about. We're only 11 weeks away from spring break. We're almost there. No? And then this is a breakdown of approximately what the points are going to be. This is something we're required to put on our instructor sheets now. You should see this in every class. We went through accreditation last semester, and that's something the Higher Learning Commission wants to see. So you should see those in each of your classes. It's an approximate breakdown. I basically went through last year's and made the point values based on it. So it's subject to change because I might do some things in here that I didn't get to last time or vice versa, but that gives you a rough idea of what the points look like. So let's do some setup for our AutoCAD. First of all, let's go to the Windows Explorer or My Computer, whatever you like to call it, the little folder to open up your files. And then let's go to Documents. And then inside Documents, I'm not going to have mine the same as yours because I'm on my computer, but you should find a folder called Student Files. And give me a second while I copy this over. I did it on my instructor machine, but I forgot that I was going to be doing it on my laptop so I could record. Okay, so inside the Student Files folder, you should see last name DR102 Machine Drafting. Please rename that and just replace the last name with yours. Please leave the rest of the folder the same way. I might occasionally pull files out or put files into that folder, so it makes it easy for me to find it. And then you can just close that when you're done and start AutoCAD. The DR102, so it's in My Documents and then Student Files. Oh, that's on the S drive. Yeah, there you go. Yeah, if you were watching me, I had to go there and copy it over. So once you're in AutoCAD, this is my personal laptop, well, my work laptop, and I actually set mine up to where it doesn't show that Get Started screen, so mine will look a little different. But if you go ahead and just do a new blank drawing, if you're already in one, fantastic. If not, you can just hit the new button and click on, say, acad.dwt just to get a blank drawing. Because what I want to do now is get our profiles all set up. So go ahead and right click on screen and go to options. Dina, is yours still loading or is it just like that? Okay, I think it's loading. It's just slow. Okay, good. I was worried. Sometimes those things don't load correctly. It's not ready to come back from Christmas break either, apparently. Is that all it did? Is it still thinking? Okay. Whew. Okay, so most of you have been through this drill before, but just right click on the blank drawing screen and go to options. And then go to the profiles tab at the end. Now, some of you might be sitting in a seat that you sat at last semester and already like your profile. So you can start with that and we'll just make some changes to file structure. If not, I would recommend you go to the unnamed profile first so that whoever sat there, whatever settings they had are gone. So if you just double click on unnamed profile, it'll go back to the default. And then let's make a new one. So we'll hit add to list. And then you can give it a name, whatever you want to call it. If you just want to call it your name, or if you want to throw some combination of your name and the class that we're in, whatever you want to do. I usually have a bunch, so I'll add to mine. So Wade, just hit add to list over here. and it'll give you a new one. There you go, and then you can name it. And then once you've done that, just hit apply and close. And then the important thing is we've created it, but it's not the current profile, so you got to double click on your name to make sure it's the current one. Should show up here as the current profile. Then we can play around with some color settings if you want. If you go to the display tab, if you want to change any colors, here's where you can do it. You just click on the colors button. And then you don't have to change a thing. You can keep it just like it is. Probably heard me say this before, but the AutoCAD background is kind of an almost black. It's supposed to be better for eye strain. If I was working all day staring at the computer, I would probably choose that. For presentation purposes, solid black works better, so I'm going to change my background. You can too if you want. It's totally up to you. You can change your crosshairs if you want. I usually change mine to yellow because I think they show up better on my screen. You can change your command line if you want. Again, I usually change my history background to yellow and my active prompt background to yellow because they show up better on my screen. And you can really play with any of those things and modify them. But I'm going to hit those on mine. And then I'm going to do one more thing. I don't think you guys need to do it, but I always increase my font size so you guys can see my command line better from where you're sitting. So I'll go to fonts 12. Close. I'll go ahead and click OK to get back out into AutoCAD. Now I usually like to put my command line at the top of the screen. So I'm going to drag it up. Again, you guys don't have to do that, but that's so you guys can see my command line a little better. And then the next thing we want to do is work on our open dialog box. So if you'll go to open, in that places list on the left side, go ahead and right click and remove every folder that's over there or link. Yeah. Yep, just right click those and remove. You gotta do them one at a time. This is the fast way to get them all. Okay, so once that's empty, we're going to add two folders to that. First of all, we're going to add your folder that we just renamed. So you can click the drop down up top, and a couple different ways you can get to it. Usually you can come down here to libraries, and then go to documents, and then you should see student files. And then when you find your folder, just drag and drop it over there on the left side. And then the other folder is going to be a folder on my S drive that has templates in it. So if you'll click the drop down again and go to your S drive, yours looks different than mine. It says, I think, STC 117 on lab apps, something like that. Am I correct? Okay. I've got two more steps to get to the same spot as you guys. So you should be seeing these folders. And there is a DR102 machine drafting folder. Just drag and drop that over to the left side as well. And then, just to make clear which one's your folder and which one's the one on the S drive, we're going to rename that one to templates. So if you right click on that folder and go to properties, then just call it templates. You don't have the rights to save in that folder. You're just basically going to be starting some drawings out of that folder and then saving them to your folder.
Then that DR102 properties, and then just call it templates.
All right, so we're not going to do anything just yet in this dialog box. So when you go to close it, it's going to ask you to save changes to your places list. Of course, click yes, or else we'll lose those settings. So I want to remind you, standard protocol for my classes. When you come to class, set that profile current. When you're getting ready to leave, please try to remember, I'll try to remind you, but I always forget, that you want to go to right-click on Options and then Profiles, and then just double-click on Unnamed Profile before you go. And that will hopefully keep the next person from goofing up your profile. So you can see now when I go to open, here's all those old shortcuts, and my colors went back to normal. So when I come and sit down for the next class, I go to Options, set my profile current, all my color settings are there, and then when I go to Open or New, there's my class folders. So far so good? All right, well, let's talk about orthographic projection. And we're going to review this because so much of what we do, like the dimensioning, is built off of drawing views. So I just want to make sure we're all okay with drawing views before we get into the actual dimensioning of it. I also want to give you a chance to get back into AutoCAD and get comfortable with it again. I'll go through these fairly quickly because I know everybody in here has either taken engineering graphics or technical drafting, or I guess Weston, I can't say that for sure about you, but I know you took some AutoCAD from me. So talking about projecting views, we'll be doing some multi-view drawings for the next couple of days. And again, the concept is I've got an object and I'm projecting everything to a plane to show what the 2D view of that object looks like. Most cases it'll be a 3D object. This one's pretty flat, not a fantastic example. If I want to fully locate something, I can fully locate it from 3 reference planes. So typically I need a front, top, and right side view, for example, to fully detail a part to show where everything is in the X, Y, and Z axes. Some of you that have taken engineering graphics from me, we spent a lot of time talking specifically about those planes and just doing points, and then eventually we got to parts. We're jumping straight to parts, which I think most people are more comfortable with anyways. So there are our principal planes, our 6 views. Here's our X, Y, and Z axes. Now we are going to be just drawing in 2D, representing the 3D drawings. Typically the XY represents the flat plane, so you're looking down on it like the top of your desk, for example. So if I have a point and I've located in the X and Y plane, I haven't fully located it because I don't know the up and down location of it. So I need to locate it in some other planes. Again, here's a visual example. It's just XY is flat on your table. It's the same as a top view. So I need either a front or right or both, maybe, view to fully locate it. So in this case, I locate it in the X direction and the Z direction. This is most likely a front view. And between those two, I've got it fully located, but I can also go ahead and do a right side view and locate it that way as well. So then between the top and the front and the right side, I've got 3 orthographic views of the drawings. And some of the things I want to talk about that we really want to pay attention to on the assignments we're going to do is spacing. So if I'm putting it in this imaginary box here, and I'm saying that this dice is this many units behind the front plane, then the side view needs to be that many as well. Now in engineering graphics, we kind of drew these hinges. We won't be doing that in here. So what's really important is that the distance between views when I unfold this is the same. So you won't necessarily be, and you won't be drawing these little hinges, but the space between the front and the top view should be the same as the space over here as well. Now, in technical drafting, which I know some of you have had, or some of you, if you didn't have it here, might have done it before, what we do is we use this relationship to project, and I'll do my best to draw this out. It'll probably look terrible, but typically when you have a front view, if you draw a 45-degree angle line, that was a good 45, right? Then you could project across it. So this projects over and down to the same point. This projects over and down to the same point. So that's why it's important that this space and this space are the same so that we can project around and everything makes sense. Again, just a layout of the 6 principal planes. We'll eventually get into auxiliary planes as well. So here's an example of a more three-dimensional part and the views that result from it. Now we will be drawing with hidden lines and center lines as well. I'll talk about that a little bit in AutoCAD in case anybody hasn't had much experience with that. And then again, as I unfold it, the spacing between views should be the same. So this space is the same as this space, for example. Now this is a 6-view drawing. It's not necessary. We try to do at the least amount of views necessary. Maybe that's 2, maybe it's 3. A lot of times it's 3. So here's a visual example of what I was showing you with a much straighter 45-degree line there. But again, everything just projects around. Just a different view, flipped around, showing the right side coming off the top instead of over here. A little different there. And again, if I'm going to go with a sketching method, this is just breaking it down on how we're going to do it, but obviously we're going to use some AutoCAD here. We are using third angle projection. There's a first angle projection that is backwards. We're not even going to talk about that because that'll just be confusing. That'll be on metric drawings. We'll hit on that later. But we will be using third angle sometimes when we're dealing with metric. Okay, I think the rest of this is just summary. So let's discard those. So on our drawings in AutoCAD, if obviously you guys are already in AutoCAD, so you don't need to switch back, I've got a template that you guys are going to use for most of these drawings. So if you go to New, and then your Templates folder, there is one I created called HCC ANSI. So ANSI is American National Standards Institute. That's what we typically use for mechanical drawings in inches. So go ahead and double click on the HCC ANSI. Dina, did your shortcuts disappear, or are you still in your profile, or did you change profiles? Did you put that in the still there? That may not see. So now try to do it again. Good. Perfect. HCC ANSI. I goofed something up on this template, and I'm going to fix it after a while. I intended for it to open up in model space, but that's okay. I'll save that. And the next time you use the template, it should do that. So in this template, I've got a couple of layouts that I've created. There's a B size layout and a C size layout. We're going to be working with B size right now. And you are going to print using this layout, but we're going to switch back to the model tab here. And this is where you're going to do your drawing. So the drawing that we're going to start with, and I'll run some copies for you guys because I know most of you don't have it. But for those of you that did bring your book, this is on page 114. And again, I'll run some copies here in just a couple minutes, but just to kind of show you what you're going to do. 2 separate assignments, 6-60 the bracket and 6-61 the link. So as you're looking at it this way, this is the front view. The front view is in blue. You are to construct a 3-view drawing. So you are to draw the front view, the right side view, and the top view. So as I'm approaching this one, let's see, it looks like it's 3 by 2 to start with. I'm going to draw it up real quick. So let me switch back. And again, just kind of give you guys strategies. So as I'm drawing this first one, it's over 3. It is up 2 over 1. I can't stand dynamic. It slows things down on mine. So I'm going to turn that off. And then back down 0.5. Close that. Looks like that should extend. And then I'm going to use an offset of, what is that, 0.5. To bring that down. So if I'm not mistaken, those 3 rectangular shapes, eventually I'll hit the right button here, are the 3 blue shapes here. So that's my front view. So now I want to draw my right side view. Then I'm going to lay that out. Now how far you space them out is up to you. I will say that after we draw these, in a couple weeks, we're going to come back and dimension them. So I really want to leave space for dimensioning. I don't care how far away you go. Let's see, maybe I go, I don't know, maybe the other key is it going to fit in my paper space layout. So I don't want to go too far. I'm going to start with 3 inches and see what that looks like. And again, I'm going to construct this shape here. I'll start with just a rectangular and then I'll kind of whittle this out. Looks like this goes back to, so that gives me my rough rectangular outline. I'm not going to whittle out the other parts. I'm going to let you guys do that. Actually, I take that back. I am going to do one part of it, and that is because, whoops. So I'm going to trim, and if you guys, part of the reason why I'm doing this is if you guys have forgotten some of the commands and need help, I will help you out with it. But I want to remind you about hidden lines and center lines. We shouldn't have any centers. I didn't give anything with curves just yet. But I did set the template up to where you're automatically in the object layer. So when you're ready to draw a hidden line, just make sure you switch to the hidden layer. And then you can draw in your hidden lines as well. So as I get ready to draw this top view, it needs to be 3 inches away. Remember, I made 3 inches of space in between here. So I need to make sure, and either through offsets or I'm just going to draw a construction line. Now I forgot to switch my layer, so I'll do that real quick. And then this should be back to over 3, I think it was. Yep, 2 and then 3. Now I'm a little concerned about this fitting in paper space, so I'm going to go look. So once I've got my views done, I'm going to go to the B size tab. Now it might not show up in your viewport depending on where it was drawn on screen. So first thing I'm going to do is double click in my viewport. And then I'm going to double click my mouse wheel to do a zoom extents. There we go. So that it zooms in on everything that I've got on screen. Then down here on my status bar, this is going to be a 1-to-1 scale. So you're going to set the scale to 1-to-1. And again, some of you might not have done this before, so I'll be around to help you if you have any questions. And then also right in front of that scale is the padlock. I'm going to lock that scale so that I don't accidentally mess it up, so I can't zoom or pan and goof that scale up. So it looks like 3 was okay. So then I'll double click back out on paper space. Then I'm going to fill out the title block. And this title block I created with attributes. And if you haven't used attributes before, basically if you double click on the title block, and you can go ahead and do this right now if you want along with me. If you double click on the title block, it's going to bring up the attribute editor. And you're going to fill in the title block using this. So for drawn by, just your initials, that's all that's going to fit. So in the value box, just put in your initials. You don't have to put anything in the checked by or approved by, but on the drawing date, please put in the date in the same format. So that would be 01/11/16 for my date. On drawing titles and numbers, most of these you're just going to pull straight from the computer here. So document camera, there's a figure 6-60 bracket. So the drawing title then is going to be bracket. And then the drawing number is going to be 6-60. And then the scale, can I give you that? But that's 1:1. And I'm not even on the right screen there. There we go. That looks better. And then we'll click OK to that. And so you should see your title block filled out. If anything was incorrect, you could just double click on it to edit it and make changes again. So far, so good?
Just drawing number 1.
Make it 6-60, the exact, which is what it was out of the book. Okay.
So it's your name or your initials, the date, and what else?
Your initials, the date, and then the drawing titles bracket, the numbers 6-60, and the scales 1:1. It's 1:1 on this one. Now, as I give you more drawings, I'll actually tell you what the scale is going to be.